Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Extra Serving, an award-winning podcast by Nation's Restaurant News. I am your host, Holly Petre. Today, we're going to be talking about robots. Turns out they're not going to take over restaurants anytime soon, according to a few studies that we've seen and according to a few stories that we've seen happen recently. Chipotle is also opening a new concept. That should be interesting to talk about. I've already gotten a little sneak peek from Sam about what he's going to say, so we will definitely hear some colorful commentary. And McDonald's continues its famous orders program. That's been really popular for the brand. It was part of their marketing war chest. So we're going to talk about what that means for McDonald's and for the rest of the industry. But before we get into that, let me turn it over to my two lovely co-hosts.
I am Sam Oches, Editor-in-Chief of Nation's Restaurant News.
And I'm Leigh Anne Zinsmeister, Managing Editor of Nation's Restaurant News.
And now I'm going to throw it over to Bel Gioioso for this week's advertiser. Bel Gioioso Cheese is a family-owned and operated company specializing in artisan Italian cheesemaking. Using only natural ingredients and fresh, local Wisconsin milk, master cheesemakers handcraft a full line of exceptional cheeses, guided by a commitment to quality and a respect for tradition. Ask your distributor about Bel Gioioso's award-winning fresh mozzarella, burrata, ricotta, mascarpone, American Grana, and Parmesan. At Bel Gioioso, every cheese is a specialty. All right, guys, so here we are once again, all together.
Well, as together as we can be when we are not geographically near each other.
As together as we want to be.
This is about as close to you guys as I would like to be, a few states apart geographically.
Like 800 miles, yeah.
Room. Yep.
Fair
That's the comfort zone.
That's fair. I mean, I get that. I very much get that. I wouldn't want to be that close to me either, to be perfectly honest.
Everything's just a lot louder when I'm near Holly.
You're the loudest one on this podcast.
Yeah.
Things are louder when you're near Holly than when you're near your two small children?
Well, no, that's exactly the point is like, if I'm going to go to somewhere else, I don't want to go to another loud place because I'm already in a loud place when I'm with my two small children.
I see.
I'm just as loud as you. You are just sad that you're looking in a mirror.
I think our whole office probably prefers that we not be together in the office.
I think Leigh Anne is in charge of that committee of us not being together in the office.
Yeah, that's right. Making sure it doesn't happen.
Well, you guys are going to be together very soon. Do you want to tell me a little bit about what you guys are going to be together for, Sam?
I am happy to do that, Holly. We are going to Los Angeles in a few weeks, March 20th to be exact. Leigh Anne and I will be there, as will our colleagues, Christy Ravnaberg, who lives in Los Angeles. She'll be joining us there, and our publisher, Joe Donnelly. We are traveling out there to host it's not our first Create Road show, but it's sort of the de facto 2023 kickoff in a way. We are launching a series of networking events around the country. In 2023, we workshopped this in DC last year. You might remember we talked a little bit about that. Late last year, we were in DC hosting one of these. Now it's official. We're going big on these. We're doing six throughout 2023. Los Angeles on March 20th. The meaning of these events, we call it a networking reception, but it really is so much more. It's an opportunity for local restaurant operators in each of the cities we visit to take a moment to come together, meet each other, engage with each other. The focus is really to bring in emerging restaurateurs because especially entrepreneurs, leaders of small brands, you're so busy operating your restaurants and making decisions and doing this, that, and the other thing. You just don't have a chance to meet the people who operate the restaurants next to yours. And so we want to give them that opportunity. There's also an educational panel that will be happening. I'm excited to say our three panelists are Mario Del Perro, the former founder of Mendocino Farms, Brianna Valdez, the founder of Home State in Los Angeles, and Stephanie Solers, the CEO of Virtual Dining Concepts. They're going to be joining us on a panel talking about food service innovation. We are going to have a couple of hours of networking, drinks, food. All of this is totally free. So if you're in Los Angeles or the Los Angeles area, Come join us March 20th, 6 to 9 p.m. All Season Brewing in Miracle Mile, this kind of Hollywood area. It's going to be an awesome time. And then stay tuned for more information about future cities where we'll be coming, because we are going to Austin on April 11th. That will be the next one after Los Angeles.
And where can people find more information or reach out to RSVP?
Go to create.nrn.com. You will see more information about our roadshow series and find a form to submit your information. We're going to have some more formal literature about it out there in the next week or so. So if you're listening to this and you subscribe to the newsletter, I'm sure will be seeing more of this via AM and via our website, and lots more communication to come. But if you are just dying to RSVP right at this moment, create.nrn.com. You can go do that.
Can they email you personally?
No.
Good answer.
Yes, of course. If you really want to email me, this is always standing invite, sam.oches@informa.com. I'm always happy to talk. Feel free to email me. I'll send you more information.
I just put you on the spot there.
This is the first that I've heard the details about the panel.
Oh yeah,
very exciting.
Hot tip. That's breaking news. Yeah, it is very
apparently.
exciting.
So yeah, that's great. I'm really looking forward to this. I think our listeners probably know how much I love to get out of New York in the wintertime. So gonna head west, go to LA.
That's
come hang
spring.
out with us.
That's springtime.
One day before spring.
Yeah, just about. I'm actually flying out a few days early, so it'll still be winter when I leave, and it'll be spring when I come back to New York, and I expect it to be a good 40 degrees warmer upon landing.
Yeah, I haven't been to Los Angeles since pre-pandemic. I'm looking forward to getting back there. I love Los Angeles. Yeah.
I've never been to Los Angeles, and I'm not invited to this roadshow, so turns out I'll never go to Los Angeles.
Nope, that's right. That's
no,
probably
but there's
the
your
truth.
soundbite for social media. Find out why Holly is just railing about Los Angeles.
You're going to be in Los Angeles later this year, because we are going to host Create in Palm Springs,
which is
so you will have
nowhere
not
near
Los Angeles. Oh, it's 2 hours from Los Angeles. I'm just saying, Holly, you have ample opportunity to visit Los Angeles later this year at the time we go to Create, if you so choose.
Well, I don't drive, so I'd have to take Ubers everywhere, and I hear that Ubers are very expensive in LA, so I'm a little hesitant to go on my own without somebody to drive me around, without a chauffeur.
I'm probably going to drive, so here's what we'll do. We'll get an editorial team minivan for Create. Let's all fly into LAX and get a minivan, and we'll drive to Palm Springs. It'll be a whole thing. It'll be lots of fun. I love driving. I am weird like that.
I'm horrified.
I hate driving.
Everything you just said sounds terrible. LAX, minivan full of our coworkers.
I mean, the minivan actually sounds kind of fun. I feel like we'd get some cool snacks. I feel like there'd be some car songs. We'd listen to Bananarchy.
Yeah, now we're talking. All right.
I'm gonna fly into Palm Springs, and I'll see you there.
Lame.
Well, I'm flying from Aspen, so I'll probably fly right into Palm Springs, because Aspen to Palm Springs, I'm sure, is a very fancy.
Aspen to Palm Springs.
That's going to be like a $2,000 flight. Only rich people fly that route.
Yeah, that's right. You're going to have to bum off somebody's private jet.
You know what? If somebody offers me their private jet, I will get in it. Let me tell you that. There is no doubt about that. If somebody goes, here's a private jet, Holly, I will get my butt right in that jet.
Hey, listeners, if you've been wanting to kidnap Holly.
Now you know how to do it. Care to join me on my private jet?
If there's champagne, I'm so there.
Oh, gosh. Anyway,
let's talk about news.
Let's do it.
So there was a few stories recently about robots and AI messing up, let's say. Being human, can we call it?
Literally, no. Literally robots.
The opposite.
So these are robots and AI not performing to the top of their capabilities. We saw it at McDonald's recently. We had Jimmy Wang, the head chef at Panda Express, on our podcast on a bonus episode. Go and listen to that. He talked about the fact that while they're using robots, it's not going to be something that they heavily invest in. They're looking for things that speed up service, that really reduce labor hours, but that aren't going to take away this human experience, even at a place like Panda Express, where they're using this automated walk. And And so what do you guys think about this conundrum that, we have robots and AI, they're doing great things, but they also mess up and they may not be this perfect solution?
Yeah, the two examples, the high profile examples of them messing up recently are a TikTok of a robot that was serving drinks at a restaurant somewhere, totally dropping all the drinks and them just falling to the floor and shattering and making a mess. And then recently, there has been a lot of buzz about McDonald's AI drive-through totally screwing up and not working properly. So very high-profile instances where this dream of how artificial intelligence and robots could help the restaurant industry, we're seeing we're not there yet. I mean, that's ultimately the answer is this technology is not perfect. Now, of course, these are also just a couple examples of them not working. You don't see the many examples of them working, right? You don't worry about you don't worry about airplane safety until you hear about a plane crash. But the fact is 99.9% of airplanes fly safely, right? So it's sort of the same thing here. So I don't necessarily think that this means, AI and robots won't be our future, because clearly they can't cut it. But I do think that there is a lot of refinement that needs to happen here. And I'd also point out too, like that robot carrying drinks, that was a very novel use of a robot that I think most restaurant operators would agree. The future of robotics in restaurants is not robot servers. The future of robotics in restaurants is robotic kitchen equipment, automated kitchen equipment that really helps you save money and time and create efficiencies. So now the drive-through AI, at McDonald's, I do think that is very much the future. And we have to figure that out. One final point I'll put on this is this also comes in a week where, we're talking a day after a New York Times columnist had a conversation with Bing's AI. And I highly recommend you go check this out, because the columnist said he was genuinely afraid after having a conversation with this AI, because it was, the AI like went off the rails and started talking about like creating a pandemic. It was weird. It was very strange. But what the article ultimately highlighted is that AI right now is messy. It is sloppy. It's cool and fun and, again, novel, but it is far, far from perfect. And so the theme of 2023 is going to be, how do we figure AI out? The early days of AI that we're in right now, how do we really figure out how to leverage it for the restaurant in ways that we can ease ourselves in? So it's not running the whole restaurant operation, but it can take some of the pressure off, and then we can slowly invest more into AI and develop it more opportunities for it to be a part of the restaurant.
Yeah, the narrative around technology is definitely changing. I mean, it makes sense. It's been 3 years of restaurant operators having to throw everything they've got behind any kind of technology that will help them hang on to consumers. There's been a labor crisis. And now operators are starting to think about what's next. And so we're gonna, I think, see, like Sam said, we're gonna see some things mess up, just because, like, statistically, if everybody is trying something, something's gonna go wrong once at least. But we recently did our operator survey about technology specifically, and really the consensus out there is that restaurant operators are doing a lot with technology, but they all think that they could be doing more. And so they're out there trying to figure out what's next, what's going to help us, what's going to make our employees' lives easier, what's going to make our customers happier. And so these are the kinds of things they're trying. One of the top things that operators are interested in right now is AI. So we're going to see more experimentation with AI. I think we're going to see a lot of things work, but we're also going to see some things flop, and that's just the name of the game.
Did you guys see the Dunkin' commercial during the Super Bowl?
With Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck going the exact opposite direction of AI in their drive-thrus. They're bringing in they brought in a celebrity to fill in. I feel like that's an interesting counterpoint to this argument is that like a place like Dunkin' is doing the exact opposite. They're leaning really into people and they're trying to showcase it.
They're not sending Ben Affleck out to every Dunkin' in America, which, by the way, would get me to go to Dunkin'.
That is not the strategy, is employ celebrities to run our drive-thrus. That'll surely get people to come. Yeah, I mean, I think an important part of the conversation certainly is that hospitality still counts for something. And a lot of the conversations I have with restaurant leaders these days, a lot of it comes back around to people are still very important, and Chick-fil-A is not going to automate their process, because one of the big reasons Chick-fil-A works is the people, right? And that's similar across a lot of restaurant companies. And that's why, again, coming back to AI's role in the restaurant is ultimately going to be efficiencies, creating efficiencies, back of house, kitchen. And there are going to be a lot of ways you don't even see AI at work. I mean, when you think about like the predictive capabilities of AI in commodity markets, right? Like that's where AI is really going to help operators to save some money and save some time. It is not going to be the flashy stuff that jumps to mind when we think about AI.
Definitely. I mean, I'm just curious. After that Bing bot, I was just so curious. Bing bot, I like that name.
Bing bot.
Bing bot. I'm just curious to see what the uses of this like really predictive AI are going to be in the restaurant space. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. What is predictive AI going to have in store for restaurants? And I think we just don't know at this point. I think the possibilities are endless, but I also think the possibilities are limited. So it's just kind of like a shrug emoji.
I'd say it's a little bit more than a shrug emoji. I would give it a ponder emoji. Is that what they call the one that's like this?
Now they do.
People listening can't see. Whatever that one's called. I would give it that emoji.
All right. Well, let's talk about Chipotle.
Okay.
Which I feel is also a ponder emoji.
Well, this headline certainly is.
So Chipotle has a new bowl concept. Because as Leigh Anne said earlier, quoting our colleague Brett, do we need another bold concept? So what do you guys think about this? It's called Farmesa.
Is that how you pronounce that?
Is that what?
That's how I would pronounce it.
I would pronounce it Farmesa.
That's what I was thinking.
That's probably right. That's probably right.
Farmesa.
No, that's probably right.
Okay.
Farmesa. There's no H in it.
You don't need an H to say that.
Or an I after the S. Is there?
No.
Farmesa makes more sense. I just liked Farmesa. That's how I've been pronouncing it.
Farmesa. Farmesa. Anyway, okay, where to start here?
See,
so
ponder emoji.
It's ponder emoji, yeah. Or maybe eye roll emoji when I get to the end of this. So, just the other details. They launched it in a Kitchen United in a facility out of Santa Monica. Super small scale, right? But also super low risk, potential high reward. I mean, to operate something out of a ghost kitchen is very low investment. And so maybe Chipotle is just kicking tires, just seeing how something like this would resonate. Not much indication for what they want to do with this thing in the future. Theoretically, this could be a virtual brand. They could do this in ghost kitchens and at a Chipotle, right? Like there's legitimate reason to test something as they are, because they have so much potential in their real estate, in their brand name, Chipotle. I mean, there's a lot they can do with this. My skepticism comes from the fact that they have done different concepts 3 times before. So there was Shop House Southeast Asian Kitchen. There was Pizzeria Locale, which was not something they started as much as it was a pizza brand out of Boulder, Colorado that they invested in. And then there was Tasty Burger out of Lancaster, Ohio. And I know that because that's not so far from me currently. That was very serious ponder emoji, eye roll emoji energy. Because it was just so okay. So anyway, let me just finish the thought by saying all of those 3 brands failed. And so I'm just wondering, why is Chipotle trying again? Because I don't think they are necessarily good at operating multiple concepts because they've tried and it hasn't worked. Now, all three of those happened in the previous regime. This all happened when Steve Ells was leading the company. This was pre Brian Nickel. This was, now Chipotle has a new regime. They have a lot more momentum. Arguably, I'd say they have a much smarter and more concise business model that they're following. And so maybe they do see an opportunity to expand that. But I am just scratching my head and wondering, like, if you are making money hand over fist like you are with Chipotle, things are going very well. You want to get to 6,000 locations from the 3,000-ish and change that they have now. Why distract and go with another concept? Why not just stick to what you're doing and you're doing well? I'll have more thoughts, I'm sure, but I'll let Leigh Anne talk first.
I'm largely confused by the bowl concept specifically. This kind of like veggie protein bowl feels very like 2016 to me. And it's 2023. So I was like reading about the menu, and so you go, you get a bowl, you get a protein, green or a grain, two sides, a choice of 5 sauces, which is exactly what you get if you go to Dig, for example, which I know because I go there all the time. And so on the one hand, I go to Dig all the time. So maybe there are going to be people who just go to Farmesa all the time. But on the other hand, I think for people like me, where that's like their ideal lunch, they already have a spot where they're going. And I think that if Farmesa, for example, opened up in New York City, I personally might go there once to try it because this is what we do and I'm curious enough. But I think most people who are as committed to their lunch spot as I am to mine aren't going to try a new place just for the sake of trying it, even if it is, even if it does have the Chipotle name and brand behind it. So I am largely like all the reasons Sam said, I agree with, but I'm also very specifically just curious, I guess, why they chose a bowl concept. And I know the reasons they gave, it fits with their, farm fresh ingredients, like all their values and everything. And I understand that, but it still just doesn't quite add up to me for me in 2023.
Yeah, and let's play out a couple of sort of best case scenarios here. Well, let's start with why you would roll out another brand. There's two things here. One is to leverage your scale, right? Like they say to themselves, we've got properties all over the country, thousands of locations. We've got infrastructure, supply chain. So let's tap into that scale, and theoretically, you could exponentially grow through another concept by all of a sudden Farmesa. It has the infrastructure to be immediately a national brand because of that scale. The second reason you might do it is if you are a franchise and you want to roll out additional franchise opportunities for your operators, right? You want your owner operators to have potential for growth if they've fulfilled their 10 location deal in Dallas and they want to grow more, then Chipotle offers them another brand to do that. Well, Chipotle doesn't franchise. So obviously that's not a reason why they're doing it either. So again, going back to sort of the best case scenario here, I think is that this becomes a virtual brand that they can strategically run out of certain Chipotle locations where it makes sense, where they have the capacity. And then, there are some virtual brands, you can make $1 million a year to, potentially with a virtual brand out of a ghost kitchen in some really best case scenarios. So like they could really increase their revenue with something like this. It's just all of the various hurdles for why it won't work. That's where I get really hung up. And so, kind of going back around to the burger brand they did, was at in this smaller town here in Ohio, Lancaster, that just just location wise, it just didn't make sense, right? Like it was this burger chain in a town where mostly they just have all the fast food options, and why are they going to pick your burger brand? I think the same is true for this, to Leigh Anne's point, which is like, okay, it's another bowl concept. Where are you going to go open a bowl concept where it's going to be people's choice for the bowl concept they go to? And so all of those things to me just seem interesting and sort of confusing, but hey, if there's anybody who can figure it out, I'd say I would not bet against Brian Niccol and the team he's assembled at Chipotle. Maybe they've got a plan. We just don't see it.
I just think about like, how is it going to be different from Chipotle? Like, you can have bowls at Chipotle. Like, you go down the line and you pick what you want in your bowl. Like, how is the bowl going to be that much different than Chipotle, or be able to operate out of a Chipotle with all of these possible secondary ingredients? How much different is it going to be? I mean, like, I'm sure they're going to have avocado. What are they going to have? Guacamole in one spot and avocado in another spot? Like, I just feel like it's too overlapping for it to actually be a workable concept.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why the best virtual brand run out of a restaurant kitchen is one that leverages the existing ingredients. And so one example that jumps to mind is Doghouse out of LA, where they developed several virtual brands around the existing ingredients and menu items that they had, which makes sense because you're not adding layers of operational complexity. You're just packaging things different, essentially, right? And putting it under a different brand. There could be some of that with Chipotle, but it seems to me, based on the menu that I've seen, there will be probably a lot of ingredients, new ingredients that they would have to add. Potentially not necessarily new equipment or prep or anything like that. But still, again, you have to have the capacity in the kitchen to be able to facilitate that. So that's why I do wonder if this is a virtual brand. I mean, if it is a virtual brand, maybe they're going to strike a deal with Kitchen United and, go all over Kitchen United facilities across the country. It just, it remains to be seen. Interesting to watch for sure.
Well, and Chipotle's been experimenting with robots too, so it's not like they are shy to the trends that are happening. I mean, they're fully involved in that. They have Chippy, like they're fully involved in the trends that are going on in the restaurant industry. They're not shying away from trying new things, and so I think that they're willing to try. I think Brian Niccol's willing to just kind of try anything. They're trying to grow Chipotle. They're trying to double the footprint, which is absolutely insane, but good on them. I can't think of a place where we need more Chipotles, to be perfectly honest. There's like one every block in New York City.
I mean,
this might come as a surprise to Holly, but the rest of the country does exist.
I was just going to blow right past that. I wasn't going to give her the joy of acknowledging that comment. I was going to say, historically, Chipotle is on the front end of a lot of trends. I mean, heck, I complain about how ubiquitous bowls are, but Chipotle invented bowls as we know them today. I mean, they were one of the first concepts and so, I mean, I'm not trying to like dump on Chipotle. This particular move confuses me, but I think the odds are just as good that 6 months from now, I'll be sitting here eating my words. We'll be writing about how Farmesa is going national and it's going to break into our top 500 or whatever. But like for right now, today, I'm a little confused, but I'm not, I don't think any outcome will surprise me.
By the way, one last bit of information I'll throw in here that is interesting is that Nate Appleman developed the menu. Nate Appleman was like the head chef for Chipotle in the first regime. He was actually responsible for the Tasty Burger concept. I don't remember if he was involved with Shop House at all. But I just think that's interesting that I thought he had exited the business. If he had, he's back working on this. Maybe they stayed in touch. I don't know. But it'll be curious to see. He's a James Beard nominated, at least, if not winning, chef. So we'll be, TBD on to see what can come of that.
Wouldn't it have been great if I could be like, and he's our guest today? He's not, but that would have been a really great segue.
Would have been a good segue, but
alas.
If you're listening to this podcast, we'd like you to come on and talk about Farmesa, which is not Farmesia.
Which sounds like amnesia. It's like when farmers get amnesia. Farmesia.
Okay, well, it's time to talk about McDonald's, everyone's favorite brand.
Great.
They introduced a new famous order this week. It's Cardi B and Offset. They introduced it on Valentine's Day. They are married. So it was just like a fun way to bring back their famous orders, which started with Travis Scott in 2020, and have been a huge marketing boon for McDonald's. I mean, they talk about it on like every earnings call, how these famous orders are doing great business for them. They've had BTS, they've had J Balvin. So they had Saweetie. So they're really bringing back like these big stars. And so Cardi B and Offset is a big move, I think, for them. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, fun to see them doing this. It's funny. They did revive this program with Travis Scott in 2020, but they actually did their first one in 1992 with Michael Jordan. Which you can be forgiven for not knowing on account of you weren't alive at the time. But like it was like a one-off promotion in 92 with, arguably the biggest celebrity of the early 90s. So it was fun to see them bring it back in 2020. And this was the fifth one that they've done since 2020. And it's obviously working for them. It's why they keep investing in it. It's honestly clever marketing because these meals themselves are just using things that they already have at every McDonald's. They're just packaging it differently and putting a celebrity's face on it and, selling it to the fans, which does so great for them. I remember the Travis Scott one, they sold out of things almost immediately. They did one with BTS that was a huge hit, included a merchandise line that sold out really fast. But really, the Cardi B and Offset meal is just a cheeseburger, a quarter pounder with cheese, fries, apple pie, a Coca-Cola, a high C orange lava burst, whatever that is, and barbecue sauce, which are all things that every McDonald's has on hand all the time. But, you tell somebody it's this celebrity's famous meal, or this celebrity tells people that it's their famous meal because this launched, I think, with a Super Bowl commercial. And suddenly everyone is running off to McDonald's to get this. And so, I mean, I think as far as marketing goes, it's very clever and it's obviously working for them because they've done it now 5 times in the last 2.5 years.
We ran off to McDonald's to get it. It's on our TikTok. You can see it on our TikTok, NRN.
That's a good point. We did.
Unpack it with the team at NRN. You can do that. Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is kind of genius because to Leigh Anne's point, there's no extra menu development here. There's nothing, you don't do anything extra outside of package the things together. And listen, we live in a day and age of the cult of personality, right? Personality sells, influencers sell. And, anymore with TikTok, Instagram, social media, whatever, individual people, celebrities can build very powerful brands that drive consumers to do crazy things. And we've talked about Mr. Beast on this podcast before. And just like that dude, the influence he has over millions of people's lives and in terms of how they will go try a burger, a Mr. Beast burger, because he told them to, immediately creates a successful brand. Same thing here, where you have celebrities who have presumably millions and millions of followers on all the various accounts, and they just go and say, hey, go order this thing at McDonald's. Their legions of followers will do that. And so it's super smart, makes a ton of sense. And, to tie this really quickly into like college athletes and name, image, and likeness, that, how a couple of years ago that changed and that revolutionized things for college athletes. But just speaking now to some of the smaller businesses out there, that personality, that influencer in your local communities could be a college athlete. It could be like, it doesn't have to be Cardi B, right? Like McDonald's has access to Cardi B, but there are personalities all over the country in various, walks of life, various, professions and whatever, that have followers who will listen to what they say. Like, what's the version of that that's going to work for your brand? It can be a small scale person that still has a big effect on sales.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking a lot about programs that have been brought up around college athletes. I mean, there have been a bunch of them that have happened recently. There was there were campaigns that had to do with names. So like if somebody had a certain name, they were allowed to be in this like legion of college athletes that were assigned to certain brands. The name is escaping me right now which brand did this, but one of them was like all Jacks or all like I'm pretty sure it was Jack.
Yeah,
I think it was Jack in the Box. That did all like Jax, Jackie, Jacqueline, like all of those kind of athletes were involved in this campaign. And so I thought that was really like people are doing it. People have definitely stepped up to the plate and are saying, let's use these college athletes. Let's give them some sort of cachet. Let's give them some money. Let's do all this stuff with them. And I think it's been working. I mean, people are doing it year after year. Outback released a campaign with college athletes as well. So, I mean, like, I think it's working.
Seems to be.
Why wouldn't it?
I mean, don't get me wrong. You shouldn't just pick anybody to be your personality driving your business. Make sure they align with your values. Don't go and pick
but if you can get
troll.
If you can get Ben Affleck to come, run your drive-through, or you can get Cardi B to tell everyone what her favorite McDonald's meal is, then why wouldn't you?
I mean, all of those Ben Affleck Dunkin' memes are just so funny. I like when he was sad carrying all of his Dunkin'. That just was incredible. And so to use him for the campaign was just chef's kiss.
Well, and it was also, I mean, Ben Affleck in Boston and Duncan in Boston. I mean, these are very, bold lines drawn across those three things, right? Everybody knows Ben Affleck's from Boston. Everybody knows Duncan is of Boston. And so to put Ben Affleck and Duncan together in the Bostonness of it, and of course he was really hype, he's really ratcheting up his Boston accent in the commercial. It was really smart, and again, somebody here who's mega famous, has a ton of followers. I think that played very well for them. Although I would say that J-Lo is probably the most famous person that was in that commercial, and probably the most influential person in that commercial. Sorry, Ben Affleck.
He knew what he did when he married her.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, guys, it's been lovely. Thank you once again. We did it.
We did it. Go team.
Every week.
Every week
we pull it off.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw it over to Ray Keys of Crystal. But I'm going to thank you guys for joining me today, and I will see you next week.
Thanks, Holly.
See ya.
Belgioioso Cheese is a family-owned and operated company specializing in artisan Italian cheesemaking. Using only natural ingredients and fresh, local Wisconsin milk, master cheesemakers handcraft a full line of exceptional cheeses, guided by a commitment to quality and a respect for tradition. Ask your distributor about Belgioioso's award-winning fresh mozzarella, burrata, ricotta, mascarpone, American grana, and Parmesan. At Belgioioso, every cheese is a specialty.
How you doing, Ray Keys? I don't think we've ever met, so I'm glad to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. It's a pleasure. Yeah, doing well. It's ready for spring to roll around, but it's it's been a great winter though.
And you're based in Atlanta, right?
Yep, we're based in Atlanta. Well, just north of Atlanta in Dunwoody. Yeah, so we've been here for probably about 6 years or so by way of Chattanooga. We originated, the brand was built there, and we migrated south.
I think it might have been in Chattanooga where I first had Crystal. I was at a wedding, and after the bachelor party, you go out, etc., and then end up at 3 a.m. at Crystal, and you have.
Yeah, we're definitely a great place to visit for such occasions. But yeah, we get a lot of stories like that.
Yes, that's why I brought it up, because it seems like an iconic Crystal experience. And I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile, and it looks like you've been at Crystal a couple of times. That you got there in 2016, and then you wandered around. You were at Mondelez, Backyard Burgers, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and then you ended up back at Crystal. So tell me, what's your background? How did you get involved in the awesome world of chain restaurants and manufacturing?
Yeah, so I grew up, obviously, grew up in Mississippi and eating at a lot of the chain restaurants, but local as well. I think I had figured out kind of early on in my career that I wanted to be a corporate chef and get on the R&D side of things and be able to impact dining experience at a larger scale than just an independent restaurant. So I just eventually I wound up at CIA, Culinary Institute of America in New York. And then from there, I've worked in restaurants, eventually over into R&D on the manufacturing side of things, and then on to ingredient supplier side. And funny enough, how I met the folks over at Crystal was I was actually giving a presentation with the lovely folks with Oreo and Mondelez, and you know what, we just developed a bond, and I decided to come on board with Crystal. And some things happen under different ownerships and stuff, but we've got we're under new ownership now, and I'm back. It's sort of a homecoming. Extremely happy to be back. But yeah, we've got some fun things that we're working on. It's great.
And how did you decide to get interested in cooking in the first place?
Yeah, so that was probably, I developed my love for cooking with probably my grandmother. So there were certain things that that we couldn't get unless we put the effort into harvesting the ingredients, so to speak. So the pecan pies, going out and gathering the pecans from the ground, and my grandmother would cook with us and show us how to make pies. Or so that's one example. And then we had a small vegetable farm as well that I grew up on. So we went to school a lot of days with purple dyed fingers and thumbs from shelling peas. So I think that's probably where I developed a love of food. And then as far as like cooking as a profession, it was working in restaurants is one of the few jobs that you could get at the time that, being at a young age, that, you could be introduced into restaurants. I had started local bussing tables at a catfish house. So there in Mississippi, and on Thursday night was chitlin night. That was a great night. You get them boiled or fried. So
you can clean the hell out of an intestine.
Oh my gosh, man. We lots and lots of pig intestine. Yeah, so chitlins were served. So
nice.
Yeah.
So where in Mississippi are you from?
South Central, between Jackson and Hattiesburg.
So quite rural.
Yeah, rural part. Yeah, exactly.
And as you said, so you learned about where food comes from because you had to actually go out and get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then of course, like a lot of folks that grew up in such areas, you develop the love for me. It was fishing as well. So caught a lot of it's freshwater fish, fishing rivers and the local lakes and stuff in the area, and you clean and eat what you catch. But yeah, that was probably something else that turned me on to the into the cooking profession as well. So there's a big difference whenever you're cleaning and eating something within an hour of catching it versus starting out from the freezer section at the grocery. So,
sure. So you have a legitimate farm to table background.
Yeah.
From childhood.
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah. So much of my summers were spent in the garden with my grandparents. And we have there's a local county extension office, agricultural office that we would go to. And another fond memory is them testing different varietals of muscadines. So that was up. Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Grapes the size of plums.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So that was always fun as well. So it seems like food for almost every special event or occasion. It's definitely food is like the center of it, and food's also kind of guided my whole life. Like, really, my life has been kind of molded around the experiences that I've had and my family and friends have had around food. So, yeah.
And so it looks like you got into the corporate world pretty quickly. Was that, did you have that in mind when you went to the CIA, or were you planning on being the next Thomas Keller or whomever?
Yeah.
Or Crawford
Yeah.
actually had more of a background similar to yours than Keller did. But
yeah, so I did actually. So for a while, like I said, doing the independent restaurants, I worked at steakhouses where we get your subprimals in, and I worked at butcher shops and things of that nature. Funny story. I want to come back to the steakhouse because it's a very unique experience there. But I it's like anything else. You eventually you tip your toe, test the waters with the corporate atmosphere. So I did a stint for a couple of years at Applebee's for as a manager with those folks. And it was there to where I said, hey, look, there's some opportunity here. I don't think I had ever thought of being in the culinary world on the franchise or corporate side of things until my experience there. And I have a twin brother. We had one interesting conversation one day, and a few conversations, but it started out as, hey, look, man, you want to go to either New York or do you want to go to Providence, Rhode Island for culinary school? Because, there's more to this thing than just working, independent restaurant side. Let's see what the world has to offer. So we did. We we packed our things and headed north. So with the full intent of the background, the independent and some of the corporate side of things, running restaurants for larger brands. I thought my career was shaping up pretty well to jump on the R&D side, the corporate chef side of things. So
what was it that appealed to you about that? You mentioned that you get to feed a lot more people than you do in an independent restaurant, and the hours are better, I would assume.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, man, the hours are so much better. The holidays, the vacations. Oh my gosh, it's a dream come true, man.
5 o'clock, you probably can go home.
Oh my gosh. So whenever I got out of restaurants, and went into manufacturing with this place out of the Bronx, New York, I would leave on Friday nights or Friday 4 or 5 o'clock, and I would seriously get like anxiety, like the shakes, like I'm supposed to be on the line, I'm supposed to be in the kitchen right now, like it's just embedded with me. So
right.
The first Saturday that I had off, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. I'm like, this is so much free time, so, but it's definitely different. So I appreciate it. Yeah.
So are you one of those chefs who has kind of maybe a little bit of an adrenaline addiction, that you like to have a lot of things going on all at once, or are you?
I love it. So speaking with colleagues and friends in the industry that, the other corporate chefs are the same as well. They've come from restaurants, and that's one of the things that will always stay with you. It will always, there's no replication of it. It's just that rush of feeling, being in the fire, and serving the best product that you possibly can on a day in and day out basis as quickly as you can, and just so well organized and orchestrated, basically every part, so there's nothing else like it. So it's strangely enough, sometimes I have to ask myself, so with some of the other projects that I work on now, it's like, am I causing a little bit of this chaos because I miss it so much, because I miss that fire? The answer sometimes is probably yes,
So how do you do that? Do you like take on more projects than might be reasonable, or you procrastinate and wait till the last minute? All that
a
stuff?
little bit of both. It depends. But just to feel that rush of accomplishment, and to know that you're still able to operate at a high level in such a crunch time, so yeah.
And your twin brother, is he also did you go to culinary school together, both at the CIA?
Yeah, we did. So I went more of the macro route with the corporate side of things. He went more micro. So he owns a restaurant outside of Charleston on Johns Island.
Oh,
and
nice.
They've been open for 10, 11 years now. He's got a bar that he had recently opened up as well. So he's still in restaurants and loving it. So
yeah, you can do both.
Yeah,
or you can make those decisions, and you can do corporate, or you can do restaurants, or
right.
be a personal chef. So many choices when you are a chef. But I want you to go back to that steakhouse, because it sounds like you had a good story from there.
Yeah, I do, man. And so this is again really a really cool thing to see. So the owner, is first time restaurant guy. He worked for the I think it was like a pro bull riding, PBR, Pro Bull Riding Association, or I don't know. Anyway, so he had a big cattle farm. He wanted to open up a steakhouse. So we did, and in the back, it was in a separate building, like a foot away, he had rodeos. So there was Thursday, and Thursdays was for practice nights, and then Friday and Saturday was the actual rodeo, and it was bull riding.
And where was this? Was this in Mississippi?
In Mississippi. It's called Crazy Eight. It was called Crazy Eight Steakhouse.
Sounds good.
So we would finish our work super early and then run out back and see some guys, play around, so to speak with the air quotes, play around with these massive animals. So it was a pretty interesting experience, So the one request from the owner as far as uniforms go was that we had to wear roper boots. So that was a pretty interesting thing, but it was really fun.
Can you cook in the kitchen for 14 hours wearing boots?
Oh my gosh, man. Our feet were killing us. I tell you what, you learn really quick, and it was concrete floors. So you learn really quick about what are the best sole inserts, so.
That's fun. And it was a sort of a straightforward steakhouse, like you pick your meat and then you have sides like scalloped potatoes. And
exactly. And then we would cut them to order. So yeah, it was great. So.
And talk about fresh.
Yes.
Was it on the site of the ranch or of the
slaughter? No, it was down the road. Yeah, same town, but yeah, it was where a little bit more traffic could come to the place. So
it makes sense. Yeah, people don't usually drive up to ranches or beef processing facilities.
Right.
This can be kind of a challenge for the uninitiated.
Yeah.
Smells alone are enough to. I've been to some, and they're like, it's good to know where your food comes from, but it doesn't mean you go to it every day. So what are you working on at Crystal now?
Yeah, so we recently sort of reintroduced our little chicken sandwich, and it's going really well for us. We're thinking we'll probably expand that out, so I'm looking at flavor expansions there. And then, your burger situations, we're looking at everything from the bun to to the sauce, to the seasoning, to the meat blend. But yeah, it's going to be chicken sandwiches and burgers. So.
Well, and you guys have had both of those for a long time. You got the Crystal Chick is the iconic one, and then you obviously have the Crystal.
Yeah. So and it's taken on a few different. The Crystal Chick has had a few different styles, if you will, or formats, formulas for it. But right now, the one we recently launched is a whole muscle product. It's got a 5-step breading process that we've got a great manufacturer that helps us out with that, and it's just got a crispy, crunchy coating. And it's great. It's delicious.
And it's whole muscle breast meat, right?
Yes, exactly. So, and the burgers, the Crystal burgers, I mean, they will, as much like your story earlier, I mean, they serve a need, and will always protect the namesake product of, in those Crystal burgers. But we're also looking at, how do we reinvent, so to speak, or kind of re-engage with consumers by way of sliders and burgers of different shapes, sizes, and formats. So we've been looking at different blends from brisket and blank, to even to grass fed. We've all in the test kitchen here. Even looking at fresh beef program and seeing what's actually possible in the restaurants. What can we execute? So that's part of it. It's just like everyone else, right? Like you start out with the best possible gold standard, if you will, product, and then by way of testing in various degrees that we all know of, you hopefully get to the best tasting, quality, consistent product day in and day out for the fans of your brand. So,
yeah, and that can be executed at all of your restaurants.
Exactly, and that's part of it, right? So, so would you rather have something that is more consistent? And let's go on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being the best. Would you rather have something that is consistently a 9 versus an extremely inconsistent 10? Maybe if you're independent and you can touch every plate that's going out, we can't touch every single plate, so we train our workers, and we have a pretty good training program, and we hire the best that we can, and but eventually you just can't touch every plate,
Right.
So.
And how many Crystal locations are there now?
We've got 288, I believe. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I could look it up. But so how you Crystal is an iconic brand with a cult following. People love it. And so how far beyond the traditional classic Crystal food do your customers allow you to go?
Yeah.
It's like the craziest thing you've come up with that worked.
Oh my gosh, man. So and that's the thing. So we do the kind of concept screeners out. We start out with probably, your typical innovation pipeline or funnel for our concepts, and we'll throw, let's call it 100 items into the top of this funnel, and through the first step, which is typically like a online screener, we decide what to continue shoving through the funnel, and but for the most part, more of your mainstream basic flavor profiles is what's going to do well. Hey, look, we test everything from, let's just throw this out. It's not crazy for you and I, but for some, truffle mayo might be kind of weird on a chicken sandwich. But where our locations are at, they may not know what truffle is, that they won't get it. So we've got to be somewhat kind of pulled in on the flavor profiles and concepts. It's got to be more approachable, but that's okay because we can still work on the quality of the product, right? So there's different tiers of that. So that's more of where we're heading, is basically keeping the food approachable, aligned with the trends, and we're just increasing the quality of our product. It doesn't have to be something super fancy or really different. It doesn't have to be completely new to the consumer, the industry. We just need to do it well.
So what are some improvements in your core products that you've managed to get through? You mentioned the Crystal Chick, which has, I guess, a 5-step breading process. That's a lot of breading. That's 3 is more typical, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the chick is one. We're also looking at, we've got a few different tests, and now we're looking at our shake program, looking at the butterfat percentages of that. We're constantly looking at French fries. We're looking at how we treat the French fries. We're also looking at the way we season our Crystal burger, so again, how do we just increase the flavor profile of that burger without really changing its core nature or what it is? So
it tastes like itself, but more like itself.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little more flavorful, a little more intense. So, yeah.
That can be a challenge, right? Like, your customers are accustomed to something tasting a specific way, feeling a specific way. And so even if you improve it technically, that doesn't mean that they like it better. They like it.
Exactly. You got to kind of be, and we've noticed that, and that's a really good question, is our comment. Because eventually you'll win more. Like the ceiling on a better quality product is much higher. Everyone has to self-reflect and look at their product and try and enhance and make it better, and we're doing that as well. But it's all positive. So it's still that flavor profile folks know and expect from Crystal. So
you mentioned your shakes. What have been some successful shakes you guys rolled out?
Yeah, so golly, the last seasonal shake we rolled out with was a cookie butter shake. It did really well for us.
That's not crazy, but it's out there a little bit.
Yeah. And we're thinking, and that's one of those areas, or one of the spots on the menu that we can play a little bit more with. We're finding that customers or consumers are a little more willing to try a little more far-reaching flavor profiles if it's a beverage or a dessert versus like the center of the plate item. So we can be a little bit more creative on it, in those menu segments.
Yeah, it seems like people are willing to try all sorts of things if they're going to drink it.
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
The kids who are drinking those energy drinks that taste like sweetened battery acid to me. I like it.
I don't think I'll be having any of those. But think about it. Golly, you go into any convenience store and you look at the drink section. look at all the different flavors and styles of drinks, man. I mean, there's a lot of innovation on that side of the business. So
there is, and it's highly profitable. So that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there are new lower sugar sodas and different flavors, or fake flavors like dragon fruit. Dragon fruit doesn't taste like anything, so I don't know why it's one of the flavors. But and people are drinking it up. They love it.
Yep. Now it's all or I guess it's been a trend for a few years now, is the sparkling waters and seltzers.
All of those, including the spiked ones, those hard seltzers.
Yeah.
I instead just have bourbon and soda, and basically the same, except the same idea, but it tastes better to me. So that's what I have.
Yes, I think I'd have one of those too.
Yeah. So, and but I'm Gen X. I'm not Gen Z. So we all have different palates. And so in terms of beef, you talked about playing with grass-fed and maybe fresh product. Is that something that you think could have legs, or you're still working on it, or?
Yeah, it definitely has legs. It's just going to take a lot of research and testing in how we handle the product. So the end user, the consumer, can definitely tell a difference, and they love it. Just the smell of the grass-fed beef cooking on our flat tops is, gosh, man, like I want a burger now just thinking about it. But it's again going back to that training piece and making sure we have the right equipment, and if we're going to go down that path, we want to make sure we treat the ingredients the best way we possibly can and make sure that it's consistent. So it's going to be quite the operational test. So
I would think so, and it's leaner, so that means it's less forgiving. But I mean, I would think that your meat now comes in frozen and pre-formatted, right? And they just put it on.
Yeah, that's the most consistent way of getting those executed the same every time. We sell so many. You got your steamer packs, or your 12 or 24 packs of crystals, and and that's another thing too we got to think about, right? Like talking about the consistency and steps and processes. We're a little different than folks, is where their number one combo or number two, or however way you want to call it, is one sandwich typically. I mean, we've got four that the staff is having to build in the back and make sure all of them go out hot and fresh. So there's a little bit more labor involved as well. So sometimes we can't put, it wouldn't be in our best interest to roll out with some LTOs that had, 3, 4, 5 toppings on these burgers, because golly, talk about speed of service.
Right. Well, and I imagine your customers are quite price sensitive. Yeah. And they want what they want, or they want 20 of what they want.
Right.
For a road trip, or maybe a long drive home, whatever.
Right.
So when you meet people out in the world and you say you are the chef of Crystal, do people say, what do you mean? What does Crystal have a chef? What the hell?
Yeah, I know, man. That's pretty often. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize Crystal had a chef. I'm like,
right.
Yeah. It's always a fascinating conversation, or eye-opening to folks that don't realize that a lot of the restaurant chains and brand and food service folks out there have corporate chefs that are there to help come up and innovate with the menu and find the best possible product and cook it in a way that that then gets handed out to all of their establishments. But yeah, it typically goes in something as, oh my gosh, I didn't realize Crystal had a chef. And I'm like, yeah, we do. And hello, nice to meet you.
Right.
Oh man, how did you get in, much like our conversation is going now? How did you get into food, and how did you wind up, working for Crystal? And it's much like I was when I was younger, right? I didn't really realize that Crystal had a chef, or any of these other brands had a corporate chef. It wasn't until I got older and thought a little bit more about the industry and what happens on the backside of things, of how these menu items are created, and how they're handed out to the restaurants. So yeah, it's typically a fun deal. And then the next is, what's the craziest thing that that you've rolled out with or tested, and so it's good.
Well, then I'm not going to ask that question.
Yeah, and I think probably the more interesting thing that we've tested, and I've learned that people are really particular about, is, golly, sloppy Joe. Who would have thought that sloppy Joes would have been, people's affinity for a certain flavor profile? Sloppy Joe would be so, I don't know, so stern, So that was
kind of like
pretty
barbecue. Everybody does it differently in their backyard.
right.
Everybody's mom or dad did the same sloppy Joe, or did a specific sloppy Joe. And if it doesn't taste like mom's sloppy Joe,
Yeah. So it's so divisive. Like, you would think something like that, that's one item, and then another one is going to be like a brownie. People also like, is it cakey or fudgy, or is it iced or not iced? Does it have pieces of chocolate in it or not? Oh my gosh.
Or
both
nuts.
Of those,
people would go to war over whether nuts should be in a brownie or not.
Yeah. So both of those items we've put through focus groups a couple of times, trying to find the right answer to that. And so maybe one day we get there, but yeah. So,
well, when you do, let me know.
Okay.
And when you roll out grass-fed sliders, that would be incredible. Or
Yes.
even a fresh meat program, that would be exciting, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for me and our entire audience, especially those in the Southeast who can go to Crystal and try it.
Yeah, absolutely. And and those are some of the things that we're looking at as well, is how do we get back to, let's say get back to, but are there ways that we can incorporate process and ingredients that were with us in the beginning? How do we reincorporate those back into the business now? So one of the things I'm looking at now is, what about proofing and baking buns? That's huge.
Yeah.
Talk about a massive, and I hope I don't get some backlash for this, and who knows? I'm putting it out there, Brett. I want to talk about, a nice kind of sweet sourdough / yeast roll for a slider that is proofed and baked in-house. Sounds delicious to me.
Nice.
Anyway.
And maybe it can happen. Maybe.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
But yeah, we'll see. Well, Ray Keys, it was so nice to meet you. We're about out of time, but I hope we can do it again. And maybe I'll find my way to Atlanta. We can hang out.
Absolutely. Let me know when you come down, man. It was great talking to you.